We're back. We're back. And no, OnlyFans content now. We're switching over. Would you do an OnlyFans?
Huh?
Would you do an OnlyFans?
No, I wouldn't.
Come
Would
on.
you?
I would.
I wouldn't.
I would if
I
I was
wouldn't.
like cover my face and then just do like.
I'm not comfortable with
Yeah.
videos of me being alive
Yeah.
on the internet forever.
What if it was like I would do it, but it would have. I'm like, who would sign up to someone they
I
don't
don't
know
even
who
have
it is?
videos of myself fucking. Do you?
No. No.
You do?
No.
You winked.
No, I don't know. There might be
Omar.
something. There might be. I don't know if. Long time ago. Now I wouldn't.
I don't. There's only one video of someone fucking me, and this guy has it, and I hope he never shows anyone. But other than that, I try not to. I mean, I think I recorded with my exes, but they're all like on my phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I recorded myself.
Recently, I got on a bed on a bed in a hotel, and I recorded myself like bending over and like playing
just to
like,
see how it's
like
you're
touching
like,
my ass.
Let me
a
see what
bit,
they see.
Like spreading it
Eagle?
open a little.
Oh, what is it called?
No, just like I got on my knees with the camera was my phone behind me, like doggy style.
Oh,
and then
okay.
I kind of like
wiggle
with my butt a little with my hand. Like I just kind of like
yeah.
touched it a little. And I sent it to a couple of people just to see
just to
what
test
they would
out
think.
the audience.
Yeah, disappearing on Instagram.
Okay.
And they were happy with it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like I can send this if anybody asks for a video, but I don't really have a video fucking.
Where they're like, que lo abra.
Do you send videos when
Huh?
on the apps?
I know that's the whole what is it called? Snapchat. I know that's what it was for, right? So I remember that people would always post like their Snapchat or stuff like that.
Do you send videos on like the apps, the sex apps?
No. I'm like, let it be a surprise. I don't know. People, you ever get those people that are like send videos or something, or like they want to verify?
Let's just get into the topic. We're not doing this because I know you're lying. Okay, so
we're back.
Welcome to another episode of the Poppyverse. We're back after a break in January.
Yes.
This is where was I going with that? Oh, a podcast where me, Gerardo or Gera, and Omar and other papis, mummies, and theys will be taking you through the universe.
Back and forth.
We're gonna be exploring everything in the Poppyverse. Everything.
It's oh my God. I feel like so tired from January. Are you not? I mean, it was supposed to be on break, but
January
I was like,
it was exhausting. It was exhausting. I need a vacation.
Yeah.
But we were literally on break in January.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we were, because honestly, with everything going on, I really needed to not be like, I needed days where I just like rested.
Yeah. I'm like, so I told myself that I would be like kind of taking, I wanted to focus more on like community building and like being present and not focus too much on like the current things going on, because I was like, I just don't want to be triggered every 5 minutes because there's like news every 5 minutes.
Okay, with everything going on right now with immigration and it like,
yes,
you know, threats to immigrants and stuff like that, you know, they're really trying everything they can to like,
it's very
to dehumanize us.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't understand what dehumanization is, it's basically when it's kind of just like when they try to make you seem less than human by normalizing ideas about groups of people.
Yes.
Like saying that, I don't know, that brown or black people are animals, right? They're trying to make people see you in a way that is less than human so that they can cause harm to you without anybody feeling bad about it. Because if I start convincing myself that you are not a human person, or if I don't see you in that way, then if I cause you harm, I don't have to care as much.
Right. It doesn't seem as
bad, right? It's kind of like when you know that you're eating chicken and that chicken was slaughtered, you don't care as much because you don't see it as a human being. That's what they try to do. Anyway, I was like, it would be great to talk about Mexico, like what it was, because you grew up there.
Yes,
And
and I know
I
you
grew
moved.
up-
Yeah, how old were you when you moved?
I was three
Three.
when my parents brought me to America,
Mhm.
or to the United States, sorry, because America is a continent. It's not.
What could Omar be staring at so intently, you ask? Well, you'll find out soon enough. In the meantime, here's a hint. It's ugly.
Yes.
But
Well, you know, we have a new Golf. I was like,
the Gulf of
does he think he's gonna have like rights to like fish and take oil from? I'm like, it's just so.
Anyway, that was so petty. That one made me laugh. I was like, what an idiot.
I thought we weren't okay with
That's
changing
the one thing
names
you want
and-
to do.
Yeah, no.
But so anyway, so yeah, it was like, it would be really cool to talk about the experience there, because one way to fight dehumanization is to share human stories,
Yes.
like, of the things that they are attacking.
Right. Then not change the narrative, but really show the bigger side of the actual
picture,
narrative.
right? Yeah. And so, like, growing up in Mexico, like, I was 3 when I came to the United States, but we would go back every year for like 2 or 3 months.
You went like you stayed there for
whole
2-3
vacation.
Oh
yeah.
wow!
Because
were
my
your
dad,
parents there the whole time, or
hated the United States.
Got it. So he would like then
he
would take that.
He just came because, you know, he wanted to make money. He wanted to make more money, and he wanted to, you know.
What year was this?
I was born in 1991, so I think it was 1994 probably when I came.
All right.
But we would go and we would stay the entire like literally the last day of school, my dad already had the truck packed.
And then he just pick you up from school and let's go.
He wouldn't even pick us up. My mom would pick us up. We would get there and then everything would be ready and they'd be like, help us load us the last things, and we'd be gone. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up because I was like bullied a lot, and my parents were like we were immigrants, right? So it was like I had like a very sheltered childhood.
Yes. Was it like a Mexican neighborhood? Was it more diverse?
I grew up in the hood, girl.
Yeah.
I grew up in Oak Cliff, which now it's all like.
Oh, I know. It's
gentrified.
Yeah,
but,
it's
but
super gentrified.
I grew up in South Oak Cliff, which is the south side of Oak Cliff was the more like hooded out part.
Was this when Bishop Arts was more like
Bishop Arts
Street?
wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
So there's this place, if you're not from Dallas, you don't know this, or maybe you do and you visited, but basically there's a place called Bishop Arts in Oak Cliff, which they developed, and that's how it started getting gentrified. But before all the white people started moving in, it was nothing but Latinos, and it was nothing but like Latinos and black people essentially for the most part. But yeah, no, yeah. So how was it? We've never talked. We talked a little bit about you coming.
Yeah, I remember talking about like the culture shock of when I moved here, and but yeah, as far as like, so I come from like, it's called Ocampo, and it's like a small town, a municipality. Sometimes when people ask me like, where are you from? I'm like, Ocampo. I'm like, it's a suburb in Guanajuato.
Yeah,
but it used to be like an agricultural hub. So there's a lot of small ranches and smaller towns surrounding it. But it was great. I mean, it was like there was like nature all around. You eat local. We have your local butcher. Everything's super fresh. Everybody knows each other. Is very conservative, very Catholic. But it was one of those small towns where you walked on the street, everybody says hello to each other. You can tell somebody's last name by the way they look, because it's got such a there's like 10 last names that are like everybody knows. And so it was really nice. I think I never imagined moving here, but growing up there was, my aspirations were like, when I was 5, I wanted to be a priest.
You wanted to be a priest?
I wanted to be a priest.
Oh, little Omar wanted to be a priest.
Yeah, but that's how I knew. That was like the first telling sign, like, he's gay.
Girl, you're looking at the camera.
I know.
Stop looking at yourself.
Yes, this whole time Omar has been staring at himself over and over and over again.
So Dan, who's not just a hot dog dad,
so we got a screen, y'all. We got a screen.
Oh, the camera's here.
It shows you what we look like, so we don't have to like guess. We could see ourselves record. We could see ourselves being recorded, what we look like. And Omar can't stop looking at him.
I do this on the video calls. It's so distracting. I'm just distracted by you.
You look fine, girl.
You look so hot. Like,
you have to. The camera's right there, not right there.
But yeah, no, it's a little. I'm gonna try the camera. The lens are up here. But
or
yeah.
you could look at me too, bitch, because you're talking to me.
Because the conversation.
You're not talking to that person.
Yeah, no, but it was I had a really great childhood. It was very like I didn't have much friends because I had like 20, 30 cousins that were my age.
Yeah.
Everybody else in school was somehow related to me or we knew each, I went to Catholic school and it was like it was pretty safe. Just to tell you, there were like some parks or plazas where like you could like eat the flowers. It was like those like honeysuckle almost. So it was really nice.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we did that too. Where we would like
there's like some bushes and they have like flowers and you could
they
grab
have
the
that
flowers.
flower. What's it called?
I'm not sure, but it had like it's like honeysuckle. It's like it tasted like nectar.
Yeah, you take the stem out and you suck on it and it tastes like honey.
So there was like, it was like that kind of
oh my God, I forgot about that.
And it's like those beautiful things that like I feel that in the current context, I think a lot of people who come here, then eventually you kind of forget about some of the things. And when you're reminded, you see the richness. Like when I was just in Mexico after 20 years, there was so much that I was just like so grateful to kind of touch, to kind of be able to touch and feel and remember, because it was such a rich life, not just in culture, but also like experience and just.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite, I have like so many things.
Yeah.
Of like all my favorite things about going, because so I've talked about, I'm from Agua Fria, which is like a small town in the mountains. The actual name is Venustiano Carranza, Puebla, but it's they call it Agua Fria, and it's considered Puebla, but it's right on the line of Puebla and Veracruz, because Puebla and Veracruz touch each other. So like it's right on the line. It's considered Puebla, but the closest city is Poza Rica, Veracruz. And it was the most adorable small town growing up. And we would arrive, right? And my dad had a house there that was always there was this older man. His name was oh shit, I forgot his name.
And was he like the caretaker of
Chanito,
the place?
Chanito. And Chanito would take care of the house for us throughout the year, and he had his own room and he would live there. He was gay.
How do you know?
He was gay because my mom knew. We all knew. Like it was like a very normal, which is kind of really ironic because my parents were really homophobic.
I'm like, how do you know he had style?
No, it was so funny. He had a benign lump on his chest, and he would always pretend he would like make jokes about it being a breast. Yeah.
Was he like, I'm trying to save up for the other one?
He passed away already, but he would always be like, ¿Y qué? Si soy mujer? And he would do that or stuff like that. And we would always laugh. But yeah, we had him in the house. He had his own room, obviously, but he still lived there even when we would visit, Yeah. He lived there. We had chickens in the back of our house.
Nothing like fresh eggs in the morning.
Oh my God, it was great. Yeah.
People here, unless you buy the large omega-3 fatty acid free range.
I'm trying. Omar. Oh my God.
Yeah, people don't know like what fresh eggs are, because it's very rare, and unless people are buying the organic free range fatty, extra omega fatty acid free range grain fed, whatever, grass fed, like then you would taste something similar. But like those are and that's what I've always said. I'm like, those are the real luxuries in life. Like,
yeah,
I'll take that over any, hash brown with whatever.
Yeah,
that's nice. I didn't know that you had like that kind of like all your summers over there.
Yeah,
in my hometown also, there was like during vacation, a lot of people would go and visit. So people who had relatives here would, they take the kids during vacations or for the holidays, like las fiestas del pueblo, los de la Virgen. And it was always like there was a time where like there were people from, Dallas, Chicago, wherever, and so I didn't know you had that experience. Was it freeing for you? Because I would imagine you had more freedom there.
I mean, I did,
like,
because it was such a small town.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of money there. Yeah. It's still not a very rich town. It's a small town. Es un pueblito en las montañas. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not tourism there. There's not a lot of tourism, so it wasn't very like overpopulated, right? Like everybody knew each other. My mom, I remember I rode my bike. That's where I learned how to ride a bike.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where cycling became like a big thing for me, because I learned on like a pink bike.
Yeah.
I remember I was trying and trying, I would fall and I would fall. And then one day I was practicing on my cousin's bike at like a party. And then I ended up like actually
just
doing
keep
it.
going.
And I was like, oh my God,
How
I'm
do I
doing
stop
it.
now?
And it was on a pink bike.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm totally gay. Like the universe is like, this is symbolic of me eventually becoming a gay boy
Yeah.
and learning how to fly.
Did you have like you know how some people like relate it to like the pink Power Ranger or something like that? Did you feel like when you were on a pink bike just going at it for the first time, did you feel like I'm on my pink dinosaur and like
Riding into the sunset? I don't know. It was my cousin's bike. So I was just doing it because I had been practicing all week and I finally did it. And then it became a thing. I used to leave the house at like 8 a.m. I used to wake up, get on my bike and go to my grandma's house and go play with everyone in the town, in the pueblo.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would like, I wouldn't get back till like midnight.
And that's
and my mom didn't care because it was so safe.
It's good. There's I think people here don't know like what, like it's so community based.
Yeah.
And here sometimes people don't know their neighbors.
Right.
Which is, you know, it's very telling.
What's crazy is even in larger cities in Mexico, they still have strong senses of community that we can't. In the United States,
it can be replicated here.
They don't replicate it,
and
it's very interesting because even in Mexico City, one of the biggest cities in the world, you have a strong sense of community that you don't necessarily have as much in the United States.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I think it has to do with the culture of like, you have to, you know, you're building something for yourself. Like you got to do it all on your own. Like, and over there, I think there's more of a sense of a collective. And I think we just look out after each other more.
Mm-hmm.
And also just the cultural of like, for example, like Christmas and stuff, like the posadas, you know, you go from everybody plays with each other. There's also that sense of mutual trust, I think. Whereas here, I think you're just looking out who's going to get you next versus like, who can we connect to?
Yeah. What are some of your favorite memories over there?
So my favorite thing was like coming home from school. And like my mom always had fruit in the house, and like I just remember the yellow apples. So I grew up with those, and as a child, like that was the happiest thing I could have, like one of those apples. And so having those things, and I remember like I would see like a lot of American media with the red apples. And I always like, oh, I wonder what those taste like. And they're not, the yellow apples are better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, but maybe that's why I also remember them fondly, because they're not as easy to get here or as available.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like having, you know, those things, playing with my cousins, the holidays, just family gatherings, being able to just sit outside your house and people pass by, and you know,
that's funny. We had a mango tree outside of our house, and so I would always get mad because people would steal mangoes.
Isn't that a book? The House on Mango Street?
A mango tree, not the street.
but it's right. Isn't that a book? Yeah.
But so I grew up with a lot of mangoes. My grandpa on my mom's side, they were in Papantla, Puebla, and they had a huge mango tree in front of like their house too.
Yeah.
Which I wrote a poem. And I like wrote it in there.
Do you remember the poem?
I'm not reading it here. No. Y'all can look on my Instagram. It's on my Instagram. I'm gonna cry. But yeah, I remember the reason why I loved it. I grew up in a really abusive household.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad used to beat my mom in front of me. And so one of the ways in which I would escape was going to Mexico, right? Because like my parents would take us, right? And my dad had a house there.
Yeah.
Like I said. And so like whenever I would
was that when
it was
you
like I was free?
Yeah.
I was free. Like I would leave early in the morning on my bicycle, and I would ride around town, go play with all the kids. Like my mom would not hear from me until I was back. Sometimes she would call my grandma to see if I was at her house, and a lot of times I was, because my grandma would cook for me. And my mom would cook too, but she would she would be like, my mom used to be like, why are you always at your grandma's house? Like, you need to come eat here too.
Was it your dad's mom?
My dad's mom, yeah.
Okay.
My dad's mom. But yeah, I would like ride around in Pueblo.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wouldn't get back to like 10 or 11. But it really was like, I knew every year that I could go and I wouldn't have to be in that environment because it was a really heavy environment. My dad was also really like...
Was he in a better mood? Like, was he more...
Well, he just... I don't know. Probably. But I was like gone most of the time. Like, I remember I was more... I mean, it was really safe for me, right? Like, my dad was verbally abusive and loud, and like, he would get angry about everything. He would call us names. He would like slam doors. He was an alcoholic. Like, he was always angry. And my mom was like, even though she was the one that I was closer to because I felt safer, she was also kind of abusive and manipulative. But during my childhood, like, my dad was the person I wanted to stay away from, right? And it was like...
Easier to do it there?
It was easier to do it there because, like you said, in the United States... people, there's no sense of community. So like growing up in the hood, like we didn't even really talk to our neighbors too much. So I knew,
but
like,
you're also,
I was
did you grow
trapped.
up with that fear also? Like, don't go outside because, like, especially when I moved here, like, it wasn't like the neighborhood that I picture that I saw on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, on Disney Channel. But it was like my mom was like afraid of us going out because, she's like, you'll go out, you'll get shot, you'll join a gang or something because we, that's not what we grew up familiar with this culture. And so when we moved here, it was like, it seemed like that was like some of the narrative.
My mom never said that.
Yeah, and they would try to not let us go out and play. And to us, it's like coming from Mexico, it was like we wanted to go play, we just get out, and we had family, and there was always people that knew who you were, who, like, right now that when I went to my hometown just recently, it was nice that I would walk in the street and people would look at me and I could tell, I was like, they're trying to pinpoint who am I. And a lot of people told me, they were like, oh, they would talk to my grandmother when I was with her. I'm like, es de los de Jorge. Like, they would recognize them. I'm like, oh, this is from your son, this son of yours.
Right, yeah.
Like, they would be able to point out who my dad was.
Right,
just by the way I looked.
By the way you looked. Yeah.
And it was like crazy to me. But that's generations of people growing next to each other and having a community. And so I had that as a child, that if I went and did something, or, there was somebody there, like, we know whose grandkid or son that is, and they would kind of keep a lookout if you're being bad, or
and then when you came to the US, it was
so
like
it was like I didn't have none of that, so I could do whatever I want. Nobody would tell me anything. It's a different kind of freedom.
I never thought of that, but yeah,
it's a different kind of freedom because
it's the same way.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, if I wanted to be bad, then there's no one to tell me otherwise.
How old were you when you got here?
So when I left, I was 13.
You said you were 13, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, I experienced the culture shock. I did never imagine coming here, even though, so I have a lot of family on my mom's side. Most of my cousins and her brothers and sisters have created a life here. So my mom was the only one that stayed there. So when I moved here, I first met my grandmother, my uncles, my cousins. So it was like I met a whole nother side of the family, and then I left a huge part of my dad's side of the family. But most of them have been able to like move to Dallas.
Did you have any queer people in your pueblo?
No. Well, it's funny because where I'm from, it's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something you just don't discuss. It's almost like respectful in a way.
Yeah.
Not as in like you don't exist, we won't acknowledge you, but like, we see it, but we're not going to address it. And as long as there's respect, mutual respect, then it's just like almost... So
we had...
Which is not the greatest thing, you want to be visible, but it's...
Yeah, we had one that was... So we had a Moy was his name, and he was a hairdresser. He was my mom's hairdresser.
Yes. It's always... and it's almost like cliche.
Okay, so...
That was like before, though, because now it's changed. Because I think Mexico has done so great.
You need to clear your throat.
I know that. I think it's I think it's changed a lot. No.
Your voice was starting to get really bad.
I know
I
the
was
more
like, I was
speak.
waiting for you to clear your throat, and I was like, he's not gonna do it unless I tell him.
So, because I was like, I don't want the change of voice to be like,
It's okay. I can like bleep it out or
I was
something,
like,
but
they
you needed
changed the
to do
character
that,
in the middle of
girl.
the
You needed
episode.
to do that. I was like, I heard it a long time ago, and I was like, I'm gonna give him some time, and maybe he'll clear it. And I was
I
like,
wonder if
it was starting to get bad.
whoever's familiar with my voice, I wonder if they're gonna be tuning in and they're gonna be like, "Who is this guy?"
Because he said he has allergies, which
Yes.
I don't believe. I think I'm gonna be sick tomorrow because of you, but whatever.
Coronavirus.
No, but we had Moy the hairdresser, and then he did my mom's hair, and I always find it funny because en un pueblo, like a lot of old school Mexican women want their hairdresser to be gay,
But not their son.
and it's like, girl, like mijo. I'm like, girl, how are you gonna? You want to benefit from the gays being fabulous, but you don't want your son to be fabulous,
Right.
like. Get over it. Like
you want
know
to
what
blow
I mean?
out? Raise a child.
I remember one time I talked to this lady, and she did say, she was like, I got so happy when my son came out. She was like, because he became a hairdresser. She was like, and now I get blowouts for free. It was funny. But then we also had there was this trans woman. And they still called her by her dead name.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think she cared that much, but she was trans, and everybody knew that she was a sex worker and she was trans. And so people would always whisper rumors about how some straight men would go.
Yeah.
I remember growing up with these queer people, and I remember going one time when I was like 18 or 19, and I was at my grandma's house, and I opened Grindr. And there was only like one person nearby.
Yeah.
And I remember I got so scared because he was like, oh, I'm actually walking by your grandma's house. Do you want to come out and say hi?
Yeah,
And I was like so terrified that everybody was going to know I was gay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there were definitely queer people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. There was a little part of me that I was like, I wonder how they're gonna take it, because it's not like I hide it.
Yeah.
But I also don't, I'm not gonna be like, hey, what's, like,
Yeah.
it's not something that I don't, in certain circles, I also don't like to disclose it, because you always get the girl that was like, how do I look? Or they want a makeover or something.
Yeah.
But I was kind of nervous about just to see if I was more worried about somebody saying something, especially in front of my family. But everybody was really respectful. Of course, there were some people that, some of the girls that didn't know, and I would just end up chatting with someone, and the girl was like, oh, sí, ¿de dónde eres? And, she was like flirty, and I was like, oh no. Like,
oh my God, yeah. I know my
Yeah.
cousins tried to set me up with girls there a couple times, and I had to make up excuses. I don't even know how I got out of those. I don't know I don't remember how I got out of them. I just remember I made up excuses where I said I had a girlfriend in Dallas or
Yeah.
something.
you have to be
Because
like,
I
I'm
didn't
taken.
want to
Yeah.
be set up, because I was like, I am so gay.
Like, I'm not gonna be in the closet in 2 countries.
I am
No.
so gay. Exactly.
Yeah.
I had to be. Yeah, we had to be
Yeah.
in the closet in 2 countries.
Yeah.
But I also had did you have any crushes on anybody in Mexico?
No, I think I
Oh, because you weren't out yet, right?
I was 13. I didn't, what I thought was admiration was kind of a crush. So I mean, there was like we kind of ended our relationship shortly. It must have been about like 2nd grade. His name was Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
and
Aw.
and it was funny just because I have a whole story about this. So we were like really good friends. And then I remember one memory, I was like, he gave me like a bag of gummy bears, and I ate them. And then he's like, oh, let's play this. And I was like, no, I don't want to play that. And then he was like, give me my gummy bears back. And then I was like, I ate them. I was like, you want me to throw them up and give? But I was like, that was the first time where I was like, how dare you give me something and then want it back because you were like, something didn't. So at a very young age, I learned that, those kind of, what is it called when you expect
Fuck
something in
boys?
return?
That was like your first
transaction
fuckboy?
in relationships.
Transactional
Yeah,
relationship.
so I was like, ever since then, I was like, any relationship, I'm like, that's always a red flag. And maybe
Uh-huh.
that's why, because I don't know if it was a crush because I was so little, but I was like,
did have
it was like my
crushes.
friend, and I was like, he had a haircut, and I was like, I want my hair like that, but maybe I thought it was like in my
I mean, it might
child
not have
mind.
been. You might have just been admiration.
Yeah,
but see, I knew I
platonic
was
or-
gay from very young, so I did.
Yeah.
I did have crushes, and I was crushing. Like,
Did you get a different reception from, like, let's say in school, like if you were bullied for, standing up a different way or talking a different way, did you feel a difference when you went to Mexico? Was that?
well, in Mexico, no, I never got bullied. I got
Mhm.
bullied a lot in the United States.
Yeah.
We were all just on our bikes, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? We would ride our bikes throughout the city. We would get into trouble, or throughout the town, throughout a pueblo. We would get into we would do stuff, swim in the river, go to the pools, because they had that little
Yeah.
pool. It was like about
Pozo?
20 minutes away. There was like pools. There
Like a
was,
presa, or?
they called it a club, and it was like a bunch
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
pools.
Yes.
It was a bunch of different sized
El
pools.
club. Clase
You paid-
media, Las Lomas.
Pagabas como 20 pesos.
Yes.
You pagas 20 pesos.
Was it like
y
a bañario?
entrabas.
Was it like a community thing, or was it like there's like slides and?
So they added a slide later, but for the most part, it was just pools that you could swim
Yeah.
at.
Was it like
everybody
colorful
was
turtles and
nobody
stuff?
had their own.
Do you know what I
pool.
mean? Was it like a sports club, or was it like a country club, or was
They
it
just
more like
called
a
it a
water
club,
park?
but it wasn't a club.
Okay.
It wasn't.
Not-
Get that whole idea of
Got
like
it.
a club. They just called it a club, but it wasn't. You just paid 20 pesos and you could swim.
You're like, in the club. In the club, we all swam.
Girl, stop looking at that.
I know,
Not
I'm
the
sorry.
camera.
Why did
That's
you
the
guys-
camera. So no, yeah, but it was fun, and like I also learned how to ride horses there because my dad had a rancho, my uncle had a rancho.
That's one of my best memories. Like, so my cousin had a horse,
Mhm.
and sometimes I would go with him to wash the horse in a presa, and I just love, like, just nature was like, you could keep walking and then you're like in nature and it's beautiful. And I remember one of my best memories was like just getting on the horse and like a pelo, which later on it turned into different things. Yeah, like
Mm.
and it just just
Word of the
riding
day,
a horse in the
apelo.
middle of like in el campo, like there's nothing more freeing than that. And
Yeah.
since I started watching House of the Dragons and I see them on the dragons and be like Dracarys, I was like, it reminds me so much of that.
Apelo, term of the day.
Raw
Bareback.
dog. Bareback, apelo.
When we were kids, it meant horses.
Yeah.
Now that we're adults,
Now it's like no condoms.
it means something else.
Yeah, that right? Yeah, pelo.
Yeah.
How do people? Have you ever
But I love horses, and
Yes.
actually,
shocked?
I had a horse. I think I told Javi this, but
Se
I
llamaba
had
Filemón?
no. Se
No.
llamaba Pinto
Pinto.
because it was white and it had brown and black spots, like different shades of brown and brown spots, and his name was Pinto, and he died. And my parents told me that
He ran away.
they sold him, and I was so upset. And it turns out he died, and I was like, y'all should have just told me he died because I thought somebody else had my horse.
Yeah.
And I was like really upset. But yeah, that's when I started liking horses, and now I like ketamine. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the universe gives you signs.
It just transforms, but you really
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the universe shows you from a very young age who you
Starts-
will become. And
starts guiding you, showing you the way.
yeah, and I liked horses. They were my favorite animal. They still are. And now I love ketamine. And that's my favorite drug. So it's like kind of the same. It was
Yeah.
the universe just kind of showing me this is your
Where
way.
your path is.
Yeah. Do you like
Science.
ketamine?
I never tried it. I've never tried
You
it.
don't want to try it? Next time you're in Dallas?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't.
No, just kidding.
I don't.
No, I don't condone drugs. I don't use and I won't, and I don't. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't think a wink will show. No, I don't know what does it do?
It makes you feel like you're floating.
Is it like dancing, right? Like it's good for like parties?
Yes.
Or
Dan, do you use ketamine? You do ketamine
Oh, yeah, I think you told
therapy?
us, yeah.
Oh, that's the good shit. No, it really helps you with depression, though. Yeah, it does. I heard. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't tried it, but honestly, I think I'm at an age where I'm just like, I don't need to try anything new.
Okay.
Like,
Mhm.
it's just like,
Well, when you're ready,
if I need, yeah,
when you're
you're,
ready,
you'll,
I will guide you.
that sounds like a horse. No.
So yeah, it's funny actually that you mentioned whether I was like teased or not, like when it came to like being gay, because I felt like a lot of the straight men in Mexico embrace femininity more.
Yeah, it's like a
In El
joking thing.
Pueblo.
Yeah.
No, like just certain things. Like I remember growing up thinking that a lot of the men there were gay because they listened to Britney Spears. Like they would ride down the street like in their cars blasting Britney, or they'd be with their friends at the park in El Parque, in El Centro, right? Because our pueblo, it was like you would go
La
into
plaza.
town and there was a place where they would have the plaza, and then tenían un auditorio, like an auditorium, and that's where they would have these things called tardeadas, which was basically they would turn the auditorium. It had basketball courts in it.
Las canchas.
It had basketball courts in it, and they would turn it into a club.
Yeah.
Like on Saturdays and on Fridays and Saturday nights, and they were called tardeadas, right? Because they would go up until like 2 or till like 4 in the morning. And outside of the stadium, there was like a park of the auditorium. There was like a park. There was like and sometimes they would be sitting on the benches talking to their friends, blasting Britney Spears or Avril Lavigne or any of the girls that were hot at the time. They would listen to other like music too, like rock and roll and shit like that. But they would all play pop hits, and I was like, how? In America, this is seen as like too feminine.
Yeah.
Like, no, like straight men don't listen to this. But over there, it was like they would embrace that music.
Yeah.
And it was just because it was popular. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, so I never felt like it. The only time I ever felt in danger for my queerness in Mexico, for the most part, was when they would try to set me up with girls or ask me why I don't have a girlfriend, or
They're
when
gonna make me kiss a girl.
or my parents.
Yeah.
The camera's right there.
I
You keep looking.
No, I was just making sure you were in the frame.
But yeah, or my parents. My
Mhm.
parents also made me feel like because they would scrutinize me sometimes, which was sad too. But we'll talk about that in another episode. But yeah, but no, I feel like a lot of the Latino men in, like, at least in mi pueblo, I don't know if you had that experience in your pueblo,
Yeah.
but did you experience that too?
Friendly banter. Of course, there's it's where I'm from. I can only speak where I'm from. I know there's places where there's actual violence and but luckily where I'm from, it was like, again, just it was very conservative, and there was a period where you must have been like in your teens, also like 13 to 17 maybe. That there was like such a metrosexual heavy culture, and I'm like, it was a hard time. Like, looking back at it now, I'm like, yeah, everybody looks gay.
It was very metrosexual. That's what I was going for. And I had a lot of crushes on a lot of guys. A lot. Like, there were a lot of guys that I was like, but there was one in particular. He was brown. He was really cute. He lived in El Pueblo. He was like my cousin's friend in Mexico. Every year I would like crush on him. He would say hi to me and I was like,
Hi, hola.
And sometimes he would look at me. I was a teenager and he was a teenager. He was a little older than me. And I was like, it's funny because like everybody, I even sold cheese with my, because my uncle had a rancho, right?
So
My dad did too, but if my dad took me to his rancho, I would work. He took me to work.
Was this the hot uncle?
He would be like, "No, you're gonna help me with this and that." It was a hot uncle.
I thought I was like, I was rewatching it, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, I have a hot uncle," and then I was like, "Yeah, he got." I was like, "Oh my god, like that was so."
But he had a rancho too, and so I would go with them, and I would just ride horses there. They had cows. And my aunt would make cheese and she would send my cousin to sell it.
Yeah.
And I would go with him and we'd be like, buenas, requesón, queso. requesón. We would just walk around from
street.
home to home being like, requesón, queso, requesón.
Oh, I love
whatever.
that.
Se lo ofrece, whatever. And they'd be like, no, I know. I'd be like, okay, gracias.
Yeah. That's beautiful about like immigrants. I think most of them, there's such a entrepreneurial
Entrepreneurial?
entrepreneurial.
Entrepreneurial.
I cannot say entrepreneur. There is. They're very like
You understand.
Yes.
Y'all get
You get it.
Y'all get it.
yeah.
But yeah. No, yeah.
But that's
I
nice
really,
that you got. I mean, that's why like I think it's when did the narrative change from they're taking jobs and what to like they're we've this culture of like working hard and whatnot. Did you ever get a job here when you were like did you girls sell?
I sold candy in elementary school. I think I was like in 5th or 6th grade. My dad would go to Sam's and get me a bunch of candy and I would sell it from my backpack. That was me. I was that kid.
Because I know there was like also school incentives here, and I thought I was like that's child labor. Like they give you they're like, oh, if you sell 500 chocolate bars, and I'm like, where?
That's so funny.
I'm like, you can't compete with like
no,
Walgreens.
but that was like that was for fundraisers.
Yeah.
For fundraisers, my parents never really helped me too much. But like when it came to me selling my stuff at school, I had Snickers in my backpack, hot Cheetos.
Oh, that would have sold easy.
Yeah. My dad bought me boxes of stuff.
What kind of cheese was it that you were selling?
In Mexico?
Yeah.
It was pues era queso blanco. Like,
but was it like
fresco,
el que huele a
queso
pies?
fresco? Huh?
Because there's quesos cincho.
Queso fresco.
I don't remember. The crumbly one. Yeah. Because there's one that like stings.
I don't remember which one she made.
There's one that's like for quesadilla and it stings, but it's so good.
Oh, that one's
it's
really
like
good.
entre más apesta, más rico. Like it's just.
Nosotros, okay, antes de llegar, when we would be on our way back to Dallas, we would stop at this cheese place. My mom would get a bunch of those. And so she would get mad at me because I used to get the cheese and put it in the microwave and like melt it and just eat it by itself. Like all like melted. She would get so
mad. Did it do like
mad.
a chicharrón or, oh, okay.
She'd be like, ese es mi queso. No estés haciendo eso. No vamos a tener para quesadillas.
She was stashing her cheese.
So how was it for you?
How was coming here for me?
Sorry, I need a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
So how did you cross over?
So it was very vivid because my mom first came with my sister and my brother. So me and my older brother stayed so we could finish school. We were in 6th grade, so it was like kind of like where the transition to la secundaria. And we got to be there for like 2-3 months with my grandmother. And it was very nice not to have parents. Like, you still behave, but it's kind of nice. You got a little bit more freedom. I think they didn't want to tell us that we were moving here. I don't know why. Probably just don't want us to start talking about it, like to everyone about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. So then it was just like, oh, you're going to see your mom. And I just remember the whole experience was very innocent. It was with my grandmother, my brother, and I just remember just kind of being excited to see my dad and to meet my other side of the family, just because I never thought that would be. We had prior to that, I did have some cousins that moved to Dallas and they would send stuff. We would get pictures and I was like, oh, it just seems so foreign, like the life, seeing my family members that I grew up with that moved. And it wasn't like, oh, we're moving, it was just all of a sudden, where's my cousins? And then, it's like,
I don't remember much because I was 3.
Yeah.
But I will say this, my dad did swim across the river. Like he made that journey. And then once he got here, he applied for residency, he got it. And I think while he was doing that, he got my mom he crossed my mom over with the coyote, but he did it with the coyote, brought her over like just walking through the bridge. And then she came into Texas. She went into Texas, and then that's when my dad picked her up and took her to Dallas. And my dad became a resident first. Then my mom became a citizen, and I became a citizen after that because of my mom. I was like 15. She was like in such a hurry because they spent like $3,000.
Yeah.
Like or $6,000, I think.
Yeah.
Just like trying to get me my documents. And then like she was like, if it didn't happen by the time you turned 18, you were going to have to start all over. And so she was like struggling, but they finally did it when I turned 16. So it took from when I was 3 to when I was 16 to get my documents settled in, you know what I mean? To become documented. And I saw how much they struggled, and they were like constantly at the lawyer's offices, talking to people, spending money.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I wasn't documented.
Yeah.
Like I thought had no idea what that was.
Yeah, I know for some kids growing up here, and then all of a sudden, times to start applying for college, and that's when they find out. It's like,
oh, that's wild.
It's hard because then all of a sudden you'd realize that you don't have the access to all these benefits, and to me it's crazy how.
Yeah, what's really funny, I was talking to my therapist about this recently, and she was like, how was that for you? And I was like, I didn't even realize. So the reason why we were able to go back every year is because we would use my cousin's documents. And so my dad would be like, my dad would be like, this is your name. If they ask you if you're a citizen, you say yes, because we would drive, right? And so he was like, we are your aunt and uncle. And I would just answer the questions. And so like, because at first they wouldn't say anything, right? Because I was little. But then once you start getting in like your like 12, 13, that's when they start asking you when you're crossing over. And I would just be like, my name's Armando. And they'd be like, oh, like, they never really asked me detailed questions, but I had to have his birthday memorized and everything.
That is so risky for your parents.
And we did it
like
every year.
Oh
sometimes twice a year for summer and for summer break and for December and in December for winter break. And every time it was like, you know your name, you know who you're with, you know who we are.
Did you ever get imposter syndrome?
No, I was just like, I just thought, I was like, okay. But I didn't realize the major consequences that would have happened if we had gotten caught. And my mom was like, your dad always gets so nervous, blah, 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 blah. My dad would turn yellow.
Yeah, but he's still doing it every year.
He would still do it every year because, and even though my dad was not a perfect person at all, whatever. They were terrible. Like both of my parents did some shitty stuff. But one of the things my dad was really adamant about growing up was like, you need to love your country. You need to love where you came from. You need to love your culture. Like he was like constantly saying it, trying to put it in our heads. And I used to really hate him. So I kind of would fight him on it sometimes, but now I'm really happy
that he kind of instilled that.
Yeah. He would make me like sit down and like read him letters in Spanish when I was little. He'd be like, stop watching TV and come here. And I'd be like, why? I want to watch that. And he'd be like, no, sit down and read me this letter. And so I would read him this letter in Spanish. And that's how I learned to read
and write. What kind of letters were
in Spanish? Huh?
What kind of letters were these?
Anything, like from the bank or any kind of.
I thought like letters from like imagine
any
like
kind
family.
of letter he got. So if it was from a bank or anything and it came in Spanish, she would be like, sit down and read it out loud. And I would have to read the entire thing. And I was like, why? But it was because he wanted me to learn Spanish and not forget it. And so now I'm fluent.
That's great.
I'm pretty fluent in Spanish. Writing, I can write it, I can read it. Yeah, because of that.
Were you like, hasta cuando me acuerdo de ti me duele la vulva?
Not a letter from his mistress.
That's great.
Oh my God. That would be a thing my dad would do too.
Yeah, no, but that's great that they instill that, because a lot of people, for the fear of their kids not adapting, they erased a huge part of their culture, and both can coexist. So it's, you don't have to pick one or the other. You can be both. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, but it was risky, like going back and forth.
That is very risky.
But back then also it wasn't as bad.
Yeah, and also I think is something that is not being told right now in the conversation is that like I hear a lot of people are like, oh, why don't they just do it legally? Or sometimes it's people who are able to to apply for a visa, to get, it's money, it's there's a lot of things, and sometimes people need to choose to feed their kids and give them a better life versus a lawyer. It's like, do I get a lawyer or do I feed my children?
Another thing that's going on about immigration is like there's a lot of undocumented people that are Italian, that are Irish. I mean, and I read comments on people were like, "Oh, well, they're not welcomed either." I'm like, then why isn't ICE in their communities? Like, why are we? A lot of them overstay their visas. And somebody was like, well, that's not as bad. It's still illegal to overstay your visa.
And also, it's not a crime. It's a civil offense. Also, something about when I recently moved here, like as soon as I got here, I was shocked by like, just, I don't know, there's just culturally it's so different, but it was even crazier to see people that looked like me not be able to relate to them.
Yeah.
Just especially like in Texas, where there's like generations of, people who are more, that they no longer speak Spanish or familiar with the culture, and being so close to me, that was like, because I saw similar trees, I saw similar things, similar signs.
How did your queerness affect? Like, because, once I was in my teens, I realized what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, what we were doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And it
like,
came
I was
after.
like 13, 14. I was like, okay, like, I'm not documented yet. I knew it would work out, right? Because I knew that my parents were like trying really hard, but I was like, okay. And I already kind of felt alienated being gay, and then having to feel alienated that you're also an immigrant, and you are also not always viewed in a positive light just because you are here, even though it wasn't my choice. My parents brought me.
I think for me it was after. But go ahead.
What do you mean?
Like seeing how my queerness differentiated. My experience was different being queer, and also like being an
immigrant.
Yeah, because I remember there was like so I was like in student council, for example, in school, and I was also like one of the top students in my high school, and this was funny because now I'm like, how do you guys not succeed with, if you have no obstacles other than, obviously people of color, or there's other, but and I went to this convention for like leadership prep thing in Springfield, and it was in a university, and it was kids from all over the state, and people kept asking, obviously I learned English, my English was good, obviously I had an accent, and people were like, where are you from? But it was almost like so curious, like where I'm like, why don't you ask the kid from Iowa? Like, he sounds weird too. Like, it was like people made it known to me that they're like, oh, you're not from here. Like, let's address that. And then on top of that, you had the queer. Well, by then I was starting to kind of, figure things out, but I did feel, it's like, you're like a double minority, triple minority.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really piece it together until I was older too. But you feel it.
Yeah.
It's the thing. Your body feels
look back
it.
at it, and
you know what I mean?
it was very, before I said something, or it was, people made it known to me that I was that I was not, that I didn't fit in immediately, like just the way they looked at you, the way you're dressed, the way you as soon as they react to when you say something. So it was awkward, some of those things, but it kind of helps nurture some sort of, to be resilient, to be to seek for the spaces that you find that you are welcome, and to create them, and also to spot them, and also to extend that to other people. Like in high school, I had some classes where it was like with other immigrant children. So like, for example, Chinese students, Polish students. So they would gather us for like English classes. And I was the one always helping everyone, because I was like, it was easy for me to help someone understand English because I went through it. And it was, it was like almost everybody could be my friend, because I could relate to other immigrant students in that way.
Aww,
so that was
cute.
So I didn't see like, I just have to hang out with Mexicans. I hung out with everyone just because I was like, we can all relate to each other. It's
Why are you
movable.
looking at the screen and not the camera?
No, I thought that
Yeah, next time that screen has to be where the camera is, because he does not stop looking at the camera to talk. He keeps
we're
looking
kinda
at the screen to
twinning.
talk to the camera.
It's like I'm just making sure. No, it's because I keep getting self-conscious about my socks. Que se me ven las mallas de mink.
Okay, so with all the ICE raids and stuff like that are happening right now, I definitely wanted to take it there. A lot of immigrants cannot protest right now, because protesting means you have to demand what you want. You have to demand for rights. You have to be loud, and being loud means that you're being seen, and being seen means that you're exposing yourself. So a lot of immigrants, just because they don't protest, just because you don't see them out there, doesn't mean they're not scared or they're not, worried. It just means that it's harder for them to mobilize because being seen puts you at risk. So if you are documented, one of the ways that you can help is by mobilizing, by going to protests, by joining the fight, for the people who can't. You know what I mean?
Yes, extend your voice for those who can't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of manufacturing consent?
No. What is that?
Have you heard of that?
No.
So manufacturing consent is essentially when the media or people in power, they'll push an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will mention it, and then a few other people will talk about it, and then it starts, making the news and
Giving consent to something.
Yeah, wait,
whatever.
no. So manufacturing stands for what?
Mhm.
Creating.
Yeah.
Consent stands for what? Permission. So they're creating permission. They're creating a public idea. They push an idea onto people in order to push an agenda, in order a harmful agenda,
Mhm.
in order to cause harm. So basically, it's when they started talking about how Mexicans are they're criminals, right?
And they're this and they're that. Yeah.
They're criminals, or they're taking jobs, or they're just, all they're doing is they're animals, stuff like thugs. They're thugs, stuff like that. So what that does is it creates this idea.
They're
and it
eating
pushes
dogs,
it.
this or that. Yeah.
It pushes it over and
Yeah.
over again. And they do it in order to make people okay with them causing harm
Mm-hmm.
to the people they're talking
Yeah.
about. And it starts off slow. It can take years sometimes, but they slowly
No, and
do
we've
it.
seen it gradually get
Yes.
worse. And
so
by the time you realize, it's you're so much.
I did want to mention that because
Yeah.
with everything going on, just if you're listening, look out for that.
And speak out when somebody says something inappropriate, such as somebody says these people are just this, or
they're pushing an idea of what it means to be Latino to the public, so that when they can act, when they attack Mexico or attack Latino America or attack Latinos in the country, people feel like it's justified. So then they'll agree with it,
Mhm.
right? They're creating that. So
Yeah.
just as something to look out for. I did want to say a couple of things. I wanted to list a couple of resources for any immigrants or anybody. If any one of y'all need to know your rights, you can go to ilrc.org, or you can go to chirla.org. That's how I pronounce it, Chirla. I don't know if that's CHIRLA.org. Both of those are they have links for I'll have a link in the, if you want to go to our bio on our Instagram, we have a tree link, and you can go there, and there's already a link set up. I already set it up. If you need to know your rights, or you want to print out a card with your rights on it, yeah, follow at Latinx Therapy. They're posting resources for free therapy for immigrants or Latinos. They're also posting resources for immigrants or anybody who is undocumented. There's also an attorney that I follow. She's white, but her husband's Latino,
Mhm.
and that's at Attorney Martinez. She actually posts a lot of updates on what's going on with immigration, what the laws are, what's what you should do, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So make sure to look that up and keep taking care of each other, y'all.
check in on your friends.
Yeah.
Inform yourself, see how you could be of help, also to lend a shoulder. Like, we're going to be vetting people for the carne asada going forward.
Yes, don't just let anybody show up to the carne
Yes.
asada. You know what I mean? But yeah, I thought this was an important episode because I wanted to be able to we have to talk about it.
Yeah, and
This is our whole community.
Yes.
Like, regardless of documented or undocumented, like, wherever you're from, like, we're Latinos, and people's families and lives and livelihoods are on the line.
yes.
And regardless of how much you agree or disagree, like, people cry, people feel terrified. Like, you might not have to be scared, but someone is. And when we're inducing fear, we have to really pay attention to what we're doing. When you create fear, you have to ask yourself why. Because
What's the end goal, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of ways to do things without creating fear.
It's important to, more than ever, to just kind of show kindness to one another. It doesn't matter if somebody's being affected or not. I think we're in a time that things are getting very divisive, and it's really the time to connect and build community, and instead of focusing who can we respond to, really see who can we affect positively more than anything. Just because I feel like also this whole movement, anti-immigration, it's coming from fear as well.
It is, yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. Omar finally was able to look at the camera and not the screen.
Just at the end, yeah. Yeah.
I know you finally caught on. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, finally.
It took me a while.
No, but for the next one, we're moving this over
Yeah.
because we can't have it decided anymore. All right, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.